Chapter 817, Lifeline 1. Bjorn, you're not hurt. Good work. You too, Owen. Ha ha ha. It's nothing, madam, ahem, Ms. Rains. It is my greatest and only glory to be of help to the captain. As soon as we returned to the cave, the waiting members came up and greeted us. So Yandel, did you get what you wanted? Sort of, I answered Amelia vaguely. How? Were things here? Nothing special. Well, everyone was a bit restless. I couldn't deny that I had been a bit worried, but other than not being able to rest properly due to final day, it seemed nothing else had happened. So, what will happen now? To be honest, I've been getting this ominous feeling for a while now. Parav asked while shivering. That wasn't a good sign. His reactions gave some credence to my suspicion that the dimensional collapse was approaching. Yeah, it's like Parav says. You just told us to prepare, but not what to prepare for. I think it's about time you tell us. I sighed. Should I tell them or not? Although I hesitated, the moment didn't last long. I've gotten information that a dimensional collapse could soon occur. It was just a short factual statement, but silence fell over everyone, then was quickly followed by an uproar. Pardon, a dimensional collapse, but you've gotten information, right? What does that mean? Did you hear it from that guy who came from the past? No, even more important than that is this: when will this happen? Raven's question pierced through the chaos, pushing me to give an honest answer. Emily, I called, how long has it been since you've cast Final Day? Around 20 hours. Then it'll be in about 4 hours. If the information I received is correct, that is 4 hours. Raven shouted, appalled. But that's so soon from now. Why are you telling us something so important only now? And why did you go so far away despite knowing how little precious time we had? There was reason enough for it. But then at least tell us what that reason is. Quote. Stop, wizard, Amelia intervened, stopping Raven before she went off on me. Excuse me, Yandel said he had a reason for it. That is enough. I found myself, admittedly, a little surprised. If Raven hadn't been here, Amelia would have been the one to question me. Then again, maybe it was a little different with her since she only did that when the two of us were alone. Heedless of my thoughts, Amelia continued, Yandel is our leader, and what you're doing right now is going against the hierarchy order of our group. You've been in the military, so you should understand what I'm trying to say. Raven seemed to second-guess herself at Amelia's stern scolding. I apologize. I've overstepped. Well, it looked like no one here could truly win against Amelia. Whether or not that was actually the case, since she had used the stick, it was my turn to use the carrot. You don't have to go that far, Emily. Everyone here, not just Raven, must be curious. To keep it simple, I obtained the information about the dimensional collapse before I left for the secret base. However, I concluded that nothing much would change whether or not I went, so I went to the secret base to get as much additional information as I could, even if that didn't amount to much in the end. What do you mean, nothing will change? Think about it. The dimensional collapse will occur today, but so what if we leave this place a little early? The 6th floor is already in pandemonium now that the Lord of the Floor is out. None of the members seemed to have a retort to that. The silence stretched on until Kylan stepped up as a representative of everyone else here to ask, so, do you have a new plan now? I smirked. No, nothing like that. The conversation I had at the secret base had nothing to do with surviving the danger of the dimensional collapse, and we had no strategy to beat the dimensional collapse in the first place, anyway. But are you all just going to lie down and die because we don't have a plan? Let's just face it head on. Aren't we adventurers? Just like we always did. This time, I would do everything within my power to save them all. If there were a point of most danger, I would stand in that place. However, I didn't say those words out loud. I didn't need to. I will always trust you and follow you, Captain. I don't know what dangerous thing you're planning on doing this time. It's fine. So don't be so reckless anymore, okay? Every person here, except maybe the Guild Master Beleg, who had come into the labyrinth with me for the first time, was a member of the clan who trusted me. Well, there was one other exception. But to just face it head on. Didn't you nearly give up on everything not long ago? Kylan asked with an exaggeratedly joking tone. He was obviously trying to poke fun at me a little, but his question was one worth considering. I did. So cheer up, everyone. Kylan tilted his head, bemused by my reaction. Ignoring that, I looked at the group and said, when a barbarian says to hit something head on, it's because he's already concluded that it's possible to hit it head on. Even if the sky were to collapse on us, there was bound to be a hole we could climb out of. You have entered the 6th floor Great Ocean. Around 4 hours before the dimensional collapse, we left the memories of the end aptly named for the many memories we now had of it, and returned to the original Skull Island. Well, maybe, returned, wasn't the right word for it. Splash. The portal spat us all out, then disappeared. Like its work had been done, plunging us into a deep, abyssal darkness. Sure enough, the entire cave system was underwater, but that was no problem for us. Think about it. If we'd known it could be a problem and did nothing about it, the real problem would be with our intelligence. As planned, Ravine used her magic to create an orb of light as soon as she was dropped out of the portal. With our vision restored, we communicated with hand signals while affixing the hooks of the ropes tied on our bodies. Name: Anabata School Fish Formation. It was a formation specialized for underwater travel, where the entire group could be led to the destination with just the person at the front swimming. Speaking of, I was that person at the front. Even though barbarians couldn't swim, they had an easier time walking underwater than other races. Thud, thud. After using jauntization, I walked in steady steps against the current as if hiking up a mountain. Because we had cast diving magic on all the members before taking the portal, we didn't need to think about breathing for a bit. Thud. Once we left the cave, I could see the whole of Skull Island submerged under the water. The drowned island possessed none of the calm energy that the submerged city of Atlantis did, but instead looked as if a storm was passing through it. Swoosh. The currents were extreme, incomparable to the flow I felt in the cave, and littered with pieces of debris. I'll need to change the plan. Even though my body had been enlarged with jauntization, I was actually starting the torrents. I was able to grab hold of, to float, unable to resist the flow of the ground to stabilize myself, but the rocks, trees, and other debris that were swirling around us were making it nearly impossible to do anything. And so, I gave up on Plan A, walking to a safe location before summoning the boat. Splash. We immediately summoned the boat, and I immediately got on before clutching the pillar in a bare grip. The Anabata clan boat was a high-level vessel and even featured a mana propulsion system. It was constructed from the highest quality, buoyant lumber, which had been further improved by the Empower Buoyancy spell applied to the entire boat. Swoosh. In other words, the moment it was summoned underwater, it automatically floated up to the surface like a block of packing peanuts pushed deep into water. Soon enough, the world brightened, and air rushed into my lungs as I took in a deep breath. "All in," I said, once I'd caught my breath. "How's the boat doing?" "The sails are broken, and the mana propulsion system has taken a lot of damage. At this rate, just floating is all we can." "That's fine. Pardon. Just staying afloat is good enough." After checking up on my allies, I took a proper look around. Heavy wasn't enough to describe the rain pouring around us. It was as if the heavens themselves had opened up to dump water upon us. The ocean, too, had welled up with clear intent to take its spoils, and the waves sloshed around like tsunamis. The falling meteors and lightning bolts were final days, so I didn't bother with them. Why did this guy have to be summoned right before the collapse? The environmental effects we were experiencing were happening all because the Lord of the 6th floor had been summoned. Most Lords of the Floors had a special effect that applied over the entire floor they were summoned on, and he was no exception. Lord of Tears, Tetrasea, awakens from a deep slumber. The moment he was summoned, rain would begin to fall over the entire 6th floor and engulf all the islands in water. All waves head toward the Island of Beginnings. After they were submerged for long enough, the waves would crash down like tsunamis and summon all adventurers of the 6th floor to a single place. The Golden Ghost probably knew this as well, which had forced him to leave the island before the island was submerged, to look for another There were a few islands that were safe even after the Lord of Tears was summoned, after all. Can't say I'm not intrigued that he has precious information like that. Either way, I had better things to focus on. At the moment, since the waves patterns were fixed, it was already too late to look for a safe point to ride out the storm. Not that that mattered. The Demency. Anyway, 15 items deleted. Begin. Captain, with the damage sustained by the monopropulsion engine, we cannot control the boat. It's fine, so just stay put. Pardon, I already told you, just being able to float is good enough. I settled back and just watched as our boat rocked and swayed with the waves to where the Lord of the Floor would be waiting for us. But at this rate, we'll just end up where the Lord of the Floor is. Raven cautiously asked, noting my inaction. Maybe it was the scolding she got from Amelia before, but she seemed a little less sure of herself when asking this time. It's fine. Getting there is my goal. Oh, she breathed, already much more relieved. So you did have a plan. I didn't. Ans v. Remain silent. 15 items deleted. For more answers either. With enough time, we saw them. Hose to. Esther me. Oh, a ship. Looks like they're all panicking over there. Of course they're scared. How could they not be with all the island submerging and the waves being this fierce? Soon enough, we began to see more ships that had been swept up in the waves just like we were. Unlike us, though, most of them were frantically trying to avoid the grasp the waves had on them instead of just drifting. Resisting won't let you escape. Not to say they were struggling for naught. That helped decrease the speed at which they were being taken away. It was also the reason they were able to see us out here instead of at the island. There. 15 items deleted. Here, as we were towed in by the waves, we finally arrived at our destination. Shwoo. The whirlpool was swirling savagely, as if to suck in all the waters of the 6th floor. And there in its throes were hundreds of vessels, each of them being dragged along into the whirlpool's orbit. I recognized each of the ships' clan flags, but none of them were any of the truly famous ones. Well, the fact that they were dragged here means they're small fries. The highest-ranking clans would have either already gone up to the 7th floor, or found one of the safe islands as soon as the Lord of the Floor was summoned. Then again, we would all be on equal footing once the collapse began. Anabata clan. It's the flag of the Anabata clan. Someone on one of the ships we were passing by shouted when they recognized the flag on our ship. The Anaba Viscount Yacht. Why 15 items deleted? The great adventurer who defeated the Lord of Terror and etched his name on the Stone of Honor. Were saved. I could understand why they were so passionately calling out to me in support. These people had just been stuck here, waiting for their deaths to come when the second phase began. They surely felt like my arrival was the lifeline tossed their way to help them miraculously survive. But why? He's got to have the ability to escape this place. Are you kidding? It's the Baron Yandel. No, the Viscount. He's the hero who defeated the Lord of the Floor to save other adventurers on the 3rd floor. So he must be here to save us. 2. We just need to follow his commands. That will increase our chances of survival. Yeah, 15 items deleted. Before I could even talk to them, they began to maneuver their boats to latch on right next to us, but I didn't dodge them. 8:36 p.m. Theta. ... Pipe. 41. Or avoid them. The hundreds of vessels present here were the first reason I didn't face the dimensional collapse inside the memories of the end. Are you the captain? Yes, I am Captain Melder of the Small Hand Clan, Viscount Yandel. We'll trust your judgment going forward, so please give us your orders. I won't be giving orders, but I'll ask you one thing. Yes, whatever it is, I will answer to the best of my. Do you have a wizard who can use dimensional door? Captain Melder of Small Hand Clan stumbled at the desperation in my voice. Yep, no way there was one here. Chapter 818. Lifeline 2. I was looking for a very particular someone as we floated along, being dragged in a circle by the gargantuan whirlpool. Oh, Viscount Yandel, are you here to hunt the Lord of the Dimensional Door? Any wizard who can use Dimensional Door. I checked each boat as we passed them, but no one gave an affirmative answer. I'd expected as much, honestly. I knew I was grasping at straws when I executed this plan. Wizards who could cast Dimensional Door were rare. Very few schools of magic taught their wizards to use the improved spell, and even if one of their members could manage it, a rank 4 wizard could cast it only once in their life. Plus, that was before mentioning that said precious wizards were all nearly extinct, what with how long the war against Noark had dragged on. Each school was constantly trying to nurture new wizards to take their place, but that didn't mean anything in the here and now. A rank 4 wizard couldn't just be created in a few years. The supply could never meet the demand. From a certain angle, they're the most valuable human resource available these days. Practically every clan was desperately trying to procure wizards who could cast Dimensional Door, and even though I declared that the Anabata clan, who didn't take in new members, would allow an exception for a wizard who could cast Dimensional Door, none came forward. Sure, some responded, but they were all liars who just wanted the chance to meet me. Whatever. That wasn't important right now. If Viscount Yandel is looking for a Dimensional Door wizard, then that battle fiend wants to get out. Is the Lord of Tears really that fearsome of a monster? The palace. Where are the palatial soldiers? They'll surely come when they realize a situation is at hand. Somehow, the crowd started speculating in the wrong direction about my intentions, maybe because I'd randomly asked around for a Dimensional Door wizard. I wouldn't be here doing this if I had the time, you know. Even if I'd immediately left the memories of the end once I'd heard about the dimensional collapse, we wouldn't have been able to defeat the Lord of the 6th floor. It should go without saying. Since its first phase wasn't done yet, we just had to ride out this whirlpool while waiting for phase 2 to begin. The rain. It stopped. The heavy rain that poured out from the sky stopped instantaneously, and the sky opened up once more, buffeting great winds against our vessel. Whoosh. To be precise with it, the sky didn't actually open. It just looked that way as light began to shine down from between the parted clouds. As the dense clouds dissipated, harsh sunlight poured directly into the center of the whirlpool, like a spotlight on a stage. The brilliant pillar of light shone even brighter and looked more divine compared to the washed-out grays of our surroundings. Whoa. I could see the adventurers around us staring in awe as they continued getting dragged around. Of course, not everyone was drawn in by the sight. Damn it, what are you all doing? Wake up. It may be obvious, but there couldn't be many among the groups present who knew exactly what that pillar of light meant. Even still, rather than just gaping in awe and watching the show, some adventurers showed caution against the new phenomenon. They knew from experience that the most dangerous thing within the labyrinth was the unknown. Something's coming. Their suspicions were proven true. When the rain stopped and light poured out from the sky, it only meant one thing. Schwa. The waves finally stopped as phase 2 began. There. Something's coming up. What the hell is that? From the center of the whirlpool where the sunlight shone, the water receded, and a relatively small island revealed itself. The Island of Beginnings. Lemia. I heard the mumblings of adventurers with keen eyesight, but their guesses were incorrect. Although it was indeed called the Island of Beginnings, and its shape was very similar, its location is completely different. The Island of Beginnings we knew, Lemia, was much further south than where we were and also fully submerged. Needless to say, it'd be difficult to get to at this point. If so, then the island we could see down there had to be. Honestly, only the names differ. It's practically the same island and is only used for raids. That, and acting as the summoning altar. To summon the Lord of Tears, you needed to anchor your boat at this location and dive down to that island, meaning someone had summoned the Lord of the Floor on purpose. But who? With no way of knowing, I tossed the question aside. It wasn't something I needed to concern myself with at the moment. No matter what their plans were, they couldn't have anticipated the soon-to-come dimensional collapse. Wait, could I really be certain that they wouldn't have expected it, or was there a possibility that they could have? The doubt ate at me, but I quickly dismissed it. It was just a baseless hypothesis given how little information I had. Captain, the ship is being dragged down. All in rushed out. Although we weren't in full-on panic mode, I could see that everyone was nervous and worried, so I needed to calm them down. First, it's fine, I answered. Don't worry about it. Oh, I got scared for no reason. So nothing much is. The Lord of Tears will soon show itself. Funnily enough, as soon as I said that, something gigantic revealed itself from behind the cliff of waves. Splash! It started with its wrist, elbow, shoulder. And then, even the face with the cloth over. Its eyes and a gag in its mouth. It's the Lord of Tears. We need to run. The moment it revealed itself, everything fell into chaos. Thinking about it, it was to be expected. No adventurer present would have seen a monster of that size before. How big is it? We need to fight that. It was overwhelmingly massive, incomparably taller than even the 30-foot-tall Hippomagant. I wasn't sure, but it was probably bigger than that super giant that I saw on Giant Island back on the first underground floor. After all, that thing wasn't even standing. Yet, after freezing the entire sea in fear just with its entrance, it ignored us and began to crawl toward the island. Boom, boom, boom. Every time its knee hit the ground, a quake erupted beneath it. As everyone just stared at the creature while its overpowering presence made them forget to even shiver in fear, the Lord of Tears arrived at the island, then embraced the island with its arms as if protecting something precious. Having covered the entire island with its enormous body, it turned its head and looked toward us. Whoa. Although, gaze, would be the wrong word to use due to the bindings on its eyes, I felt chills go down my spine as I felt like our gazes met. It seemed the feeling wasn't just limited to me either. Captain, what happens now? Like I told you, you don't need to worry. It'll just try to kill us now. Pardon. Of course, it wouldn't actively start hunting us. Phase 2 was just that thing hugging the island. The problem was that even though the Lord of Tears wouldn't move, it would start using all sorts of skills against us, and the walls of water surrounding us would start spewing out monsters to attack us. Raven, who had been a bit quiet after that talking to from Amelia, spoke up in confusion. Then aren't we in big trouble? I heard that the lords of the floor from the 6th floor and up are as strong as most rank 1 monsters. The Wolf of Prophecy was terrifying. Just how fearsome will that monster be? The members shivered at the horrific memory. That's why I'm telling you not to worry. I spoke as I stared at the Lord of Tears, who seemed to also be staring back at me while hugging the island. It's about time. I still didn't know whether I should be relieved. Honestly, I would have preferred 100 times over for my prediction to have all been wrong and for us to have to just fight the Lord of Terror today. However, 003, 002, 001, luck was never on my side. 000, time to do this. Final day's duration has expired. The labyrinth has closed. You are moved to Rafta. You are moved to Rafta. You are moved to Rafta. An error has occurred. Failed to move you to Raftania. The bolts of lightning and meteors falling from the sky all disappeared in a moment of quiet. However, that quiet was far from peaceful. It was the calm before the storm. At least I was able to sense that this was the silence before the great storm slammed into us. Crack. It began with a small sound. Crack. Then a small rift appeared in the world. Rip. Crack. Finally, those small cracks connected and branched out like spiderwebs. The hundreds of adventurers previously at the mercy of the currents of the Lord of Tears witnessed an abnormal event that they had never experienced before. Crack. At last came one more cracking sound that echoed throughout the world. The world shattered into thousands of pieces, and on those fragments, I could see unfamiliar faces, monsters, and locations. A wizard hunting in the great demon realm. A large clan traveling across the dark continent on the 7th floor. A small, no-name team hiking through the snowstorm on ice rock. These people moved across the reflections of the thousands of fragments, like pieces of a shattered mirror. What the who's that? Bjorn. Yandel. Wait, is that the great ocean behind him? Some even spoke in my direction. And then, a snowflake carried on the wind drifted over before melting on the back of my hand. This was the dimensional collapse, an ordinary world forcibly twisted and crushed by an unknown power and turned into a scrunched piece of paper. Crack. Another cracking sound led to the thousands of fragments shattering into millions more. So a dimensional collapse really is happening. Even though I knew of it beforehand, my chest heart was pounding away in my however, in contrast to my racing heart, my thoughts slowed and honed in instantly on my duty. Stick close to me, I hurriedly shouted. All the members on the boat rushed over to me. Shatter. With the sound of something shattering. The world crumbled again. This is, when I regained my senses and raised my head. Gate of the Abyss. A familiar stone gate greeted me. Chapter 819. Lifeline 3. If someone asked me to choose the worst disaster a player could encounter while playing Dungeon and Stone, I would immediately pick a dimensional collapse without hesitation, and for one big reason alone: you had no idea what would happen to you. When a dimensional collapse occurred, the separation between each floor became meaningless, and the portals that connected all the floors stopped functioning too. It was as if all the tiles on the map turned into random portals. Whenever you pressed a movement key in the game, so every time you took a step in any direction, the surrounding area changed, and you were teleported to a random area in the labyrinth. Bah dump. And that was why it wasn't completely unbelievable that this was where I found myself. Gate of the Abyss. Bah dump. Even though I had only ever seen it as a 2D sprite in the game, I could instinctively recognize that familiar stone gate. The Gate of the Abyss. The hope and dream of the evil spirits dragged into this otherworld, and the place that led Bekoli to burn his life down in flames for a slim chance to open it. You have discovered the Gate of the Abyss. The moment this gate suddenly appeared before me, my mind went blank, but not because it was bereft of thoughts. It was more like I couldn't focus on any single thought because of how many were firing off at once. Bah dump. What were the chances that I would land in front of the Gate of Abyss, considering all those areas from the first floor to the 10th floor in this vast labyrinth? Bah dump. Was this a hidden secret that I didn't know about? No. More importantly, what would happen if I took a step forward and opened the gate? Bah dump. What about the Earth Witch who told me not to open it? What about the palace that was definitely hiding some secret from me? Bah dump. Did I not need to care about any of that? Would everything come to an end the moment I opened that gate? Would I really, be able to return to my original world, just as Oral Gavis said? Then again, that wasn't what I wanted. Bah dump. Thoughts immediately swirled through my mind, but the ending had already been decided. It doesn't matter, anyway. All sorts of traps littered the area in front of the Gate of the Abyss. The moment I stepped beyond the tile I was currently on, I would face potential extermination. Not to mention, I didn't know exactly which tile I had ended up on. The sheer fact that I had landed on a safe tile among the thousands here was something I needed to be grateful for. That was what I should be feeling. But, maybe, just maybe, if I could just get lucky once in my life and run up to that gate while only stepping on the safe tiles, what would happen? Yandel. Just then, Amelia's voice dragged me back to reality. Just what are you thinking so hard about? You've been ignoring me. Ah, she was trying to talk to me. Sorry, I said after shaking myself out of it. I just got distracted for a moment. I don't know what you were thinking, but you need to stay focused from this moment on. The dimensional collapse has begun, just like you said it would. Understood. I just barely managed to wrench my attention away from the door, and when I looked back, I could see my clan members looking around on high alert. All right, there doesn't seem to be anyone who was left behind. I can't sense any monsters nearby. That's a relief to hear, but I have no idea where we are. But, was there a place like this in the labyrinth? I don't know. I've never been to a place like this, at least. Although talk about what this place could be was beginning to circulate, I only told them to stay close and not stray too far without any additional explanation. There was no reason to cause a commotion by going out of my way to tell them that it was the Gate of the Abyss. Mr. Perev, do you know? Haha, I have no idea either. As a player, Sven Perev definitely would have recognized the Gate of the Abyss, but he was acting dumb just like I was to avoid drawing any unnecessary suspicion. Although more people than just I knew the truth now, that only applied to the people closest to me, the ones I could trust most. Most of the members here didn't know of my true identity. It's not like staying quiet will do us any harm, so there's no need for me to step up. It's not like we're going to be here for long. Like the universe had heard my thoughts. There was a blinding flash of light, and our surrounding area changed once more, replacing the darkness around us with bright light and cold, cutting winds. Ice rock this time. I had arrived in the place where I had once fought for my life. I took in the cold winds battering against My skin, recalling the declaration I made in this place. But first, I need to check on the members. I quickly looked around and did a head count. Thankfully, no one was separated this time either. Mr. Yandel, quote. However, this time, a monster had appeared. A monster right in front of us. Huak, the beast-type monster charged us right as I finished my count of the clan members. However, before the monster's open jaws could reach me, Erwin fired an arrow that pierced straight through its neck. With a whooshing hiss, it disappeared in a burst of light, leaving behind a mana stone. A manticore, someone mumbled in a daze. It was the rank 5 monster that dropped. The leap, which was a personal favorite of mine. Everyone was confused by its appearance. Why is that thing here? Wait, maybe we're not at Ice Rock. No way, we definitely were at Ice Rock. There was a reason for that manticore's sudden and unusual appearance. It's because of the dimensional collapse. Raven piped up, just like how we suddenly arrived here when we were on the 6th floor just a moment ago. That monster was also dragged here without being able to resist. Since Raven explained in my stead, I didn't need to speak up again. By the way, everyone heard what Mr. Yandel said before, right? Everyone, come here. Even if we have monsters appearing around us, we need to stick together as closely as we can. If you don't, you might end up falling into a place all by Flash, yourself. Wow, it wasn't even giving us time to talk. When we opened our eyes this time, we were in a jungle with dense foliage. However, there were no other distinguishing features we could pick out, so it was difficult to say where we were. When we noticed how dark our surroundings were and took a closer look at the trees, though, it's the Great Forest, on the 7th floor, Dark Continent. Of course, it didn't really matter where exactly we were. This was a dimensional collapse. We weren't going to be here for long, anyway. The real problem wasn't our location, but what we could encounter here, ready for combat. Unlike before, as soon as we opened our eyes, the monsters around us charged as if they had been waiting for us. You have defeated a dead bun. You have defeated a red eye. You have defeated an Ironrock Hill Guardian soldier. You have defeated an orc sorcerer. Thankfully, since the monsters were low rank, our battles didn't take that long. Maybe that was why it happened. This dimensional collapse thing is easier than I thought. That damn guild master ended up planting a death flag. Every time someone said something like that, something worse was bound to happen. Shut up. It hasn't even truly begun yet, I snapped. Haha, there's no need to say that. Is this insubordination? No. Haha, it's nothing like that. Quote. Before he could even finish, I punched the guild master straight in the face. While I held back because it was just a warning shot, the guild master still seemed shocked at being hit out of seemingly nowhere. I stared him down and made myself clear. It's only been 3 minutes since the dimensional collapse began, but you think it'll be easy. I don't care if you think like that in your mind, but never speak it out loud again. I worry that your rotten mental state will infect the others. Wait, that wasn't my intention. Then what was your intention? What if we hadn't faced low-rank monsters, huh? What if it were a rank 1? Or even just a rank 2 monster? Then, I couldn't continue my lecture before another flash of light engulfed us and changed the scenery, and then we were at the Dark Continent once more. Judging by the bones scattered about, we must have been at the entrance to the path into the dragon pit. A bone dragonian. There was no point in shouting out a direction, as the rank 3 monster just appeared right in the center of our formation. Well, maybe, appeared, wasn't the correct word to use. From its perspective, it'd look as if we were the ones who suddenly appeared and surrounded it. Huak. Baha'u'llah. Before it could go on a rampage, I immediately jumped onto its body and tried to wrestle it into submission. What the hell, already? Although it had only been a few seconds since we were transferred, another flash of light blanketed us. This time, I had no idea where we were. No, to be precise, I didn't have the luxury of taking the time to assess our surroundings. I was too busy suppressing the bone dragonian that had followed us. What are you doing? Kill this thing, already. There are monsters outside the formation. As well. Team 2, take care of the monsters outside. We'll deal with the bone dragonian. Thankfully, Amelia gave the orders in my Stead to quickly and cleanly deal with the situation, and we continued our battle. However, before we could finish off the Bone Dragonian, our field changed once more. It was one of the most annoying parts about a dimensional collapse. Arg, it's too hectic. It was like an infinite monster wave simulator. Our terrain changed constantly, and monsters rushed us at the same time. Of course, we wouldn't have any problem if we could deal with them before the next jump, flash, but when it took too long to deal with a rank 2 or a rank 3 monster, we needed to begin the next wave with the prior handicap in place, just like now. It's another rank 3 monster. We'll deal with the Bone Dragonian first. The world continued to flicker in and out as our battles stretched on endlessly. Still, we were on the lucky side for now. We hadn't encountered any rank 1 or rank 2 monsters yet. Flash, we even encountered reinforcements. Anabata clan, we'll deal with the rest, so you guys take that side. Oh, alright, I recognized them as the Red Steel clan. From their insignia, there had been 42 of them when they entered the labyrinth, but now, there were only 18 of them left. Apparently, they hadn't stuck as close to each other during the dimensional collapse as we had. One of the Red Steel clan members rolled to the side to dodge a monster attack, and in the next instant, the man's body disappeared as if he had rolled into an invisible portal. Damn it, Johnson got taken. Don't go. Shit, it's already too late. This was another trait of the dimensional collapse. Although we couldn't see them, we were surrounded by walls. The moment anyone crossed one of those invisible walls, they would be transported to a different area without any flashes of light, and unless they were extremely lucky, getting back to their original location was practically impossible. You have defeated a Frost Wolf. You have defeated an Ice Golem. You have defeated a Beldinose. Express +7. You have defeated a Storm Gush. You have defeated an Orc Hero. Still, thanks to the addition of the other clan who had been swept up in the dimensional collapse, we were able to slowly but surely deal with all the monsters that came our way. We got a bit of time to catch our breath. It's fate that we met like this. Let us at least introduce. Damn it, without any time to rest, there was another flash of light, and we were separated from the Red Steel clan without any goodbyes, since they were standing a little ways away from us. You have defeated an Akeltas. You have defeated a Slayer Knight. Express +7. You have defeated a Garcian. You have defeated a Lucher Talismancer. This process continued on for a while. The field would change with a flash of light, which exposed us to new monsters, and when the flash came again, the monsters we weren't able to kill followed us and kept piling on. GRRRRRK. Once, we were summoned into the middle of the deep sea and had to fight harder than we had ever fought before. Hold on for a little longer. We spent so long sticking close to each other and trying to endure the crushing currents. I don't think I see any more of them. Is it over? Even though we defeated all the monsters around us, the world didn't flash white. I hadn't noticed because of how hectic everything had been. I let out the breath I'd been holding in. How long has it been since our last teleportation? I think it's been around 10 minutes. Okay, in that case. Oh, is that the end of it? It's easier than I thought. Aner cheered unthinkingly. I was about to tell her off, arguing that she didn't know a thing, but I just let it slide since I had more important things to think about. I even ignored the guild master who looked at me with a pitiful expression as if I'd wronged him, and instead just picked up a pebble off the ground and tossed it. The stone that I threw skittered across the ground, plopping and rolling and not disappearing or falling to the ground in the distance. Is it over? I nodded at Raven's question. Yeah, the first wave had completed. Forashock, main shock, aftershock. Just like how earthquakes could be divided into these 3 stages, the dimensional collapse also had multiple stages of collapse. We're between 2 different waves. It was a temporary period of safety, designated the blank period. From the records left behind by those who survived a dimensional collapse, this blank period was always of different lengths, but they were at least 8 hours each, Raven explained. Then, can we just rest now? Well, if nothing happens before then. Didn't you say this was that blank period or whatever? At Aner's question, Raven gave a wry smile and shrugged. If it was going to be that peaceful, it would have been named rest period instead of blank period. Oh, I see. Explain it to me in simple terms. Although we're better off than before, we're still in danger. We have no idea where we are, and all sorts of monsters would have been dumped onto this floor as well. There might be a rank 1 monster wandering around here, if not worse. I smirked, ignoring the fact that she was able to stay so calm while saying something so terrifying, and took a look around. Raven, do you really not know where we are? What? Oh, only then did she seem to recognize it. The burning forest. It was a place that was somewhat special to us. The burning forest was the field that allowed entry into the special field mirror of fire through the use of the remains of a Mila rodent that appeared on the 5th floor Great Demon Realm. You have activated Orb of Fire. It was also the place where I obtained my Orb of Fire, which I was using even now. From what I can tell, you don't plan on sitting down and resting. 8 hours is too long to waste on just resting. If we meet another group of adventurers, we could team up with them. 2. Well, that is true. After catching our breaths somewhat, I led my members toward the burning forest, the acquisition point of the Orb of Fire. It'll be useful to have one more on layaway since we're operating as 2 teams now. As we traveled, we continued to encounter monsters that we would have never encountered here that blocked our path, but none of them were too threatening. Whoosh. The continuous fire damage also wasn't to the point where I needed to worry about it. The Orb of Fire was good enough even without cold blood to stack on top of it. We're nearly there. As we passed by the trees into the heart of the burning forest, a huge monolith revealed itself. For note, this obelisk was only a landmark and didn't have any special function in the game. That was why I only used it as a guidepost when looking for the hut where the Orb of Fire lay dormant. But was it always this white? It seemed I wasn't the only one who thought something was off. I think something's written on it as well. Hearing what Raven said, I approached the stone to look at it a little closer. A woman appeared from the side of the monolith, wearing clothes that were way too ordinary looking to be mistaken for adventurers' gear. Awah, she was holding an infant who was crying their heart out. You were here. I've been looking for you. A man appeared from behind them to call for the woman. Let's go home already, Tarvian. And astonishingly called her by a name that I was familiar with. Chapter 820. Lifeline 4. Tarvian, Tarvian, Tarvian. Where had I heard that name before? Why was it so familiar to me? Those two, what are they saying? While I was standing, observing the man and the woman, Raven's question pierced through the dazed fog of my mind, and only then did I realize it. Oh, they were speaking in the ancient language. Although Raven could read it, her listening and speaking of the language weren't up to par. Wait, let's just wait here for a little longer. You don't know, maybe someone will be here, Travian. In this world, no one. Yeah, sure, let's wait a little bit before going back. The 3 of them existed despite all rationale and reason, perhaps even as a mystery on a different playing field than even this bizarre-looking obelisk. They're wearing regular clothes, use the ancient language, and are even holding an infant. Just who are those people? Raven pressed. This time, I could sense something beyond her initial caution, fear. I didn't blame her, though. Fearing the unknown was a very human reaction. I don't think they're ordinary adventurers. Maybe they're an achievement of Gabrielius. How many of these have I experienced after following Viscount Yandel into the labyrinth? I couldn't tell if that last one was the guild master's muttering to himself in joy or in regret, but I quieted everyone down. I understand that everyone's curious, but stand down for now. If we were too noisy, they could detect us. Thankfully, it didn't seem their senses were heightened enough to have discovered us, so I just continued listening in on their conversation. Not that they had a lot to say. The woman just clutched her child close as she stared up at the stone monument while the young man looked at her with a bit of sadness in his eyes. When the baby cried, the woman consoled and calmed them down, and a conflicted expression stole through the man's eyes as she did so. Quote opening parenthesis ... Let's go back now, Zephyros. Zephyros. Why did that name also sound familiar? I was starting to get frustrated with trying to figure out where I'd heard of them. But just then, a thought struck me like a bolt from the blue. However, since I wasn't completely certain yet, Raven, yes. Do you remember the names Tarvian and Zephyros? Not really. There was that one diary we found in the Cabin where we obtained the orb of fire. Oh, that diary. That's right. I think those two were the names that were in that diary. Lower your voice a little. Quote. So, why are you suddenly bringing it up? Oh, that. It seems their names are Tarvian and Zephyros, I answered flatly. Raven took a moment before shouting out in surprise. Whoops. They probably heard that one. I quickly shut her mouth with my hand, and turned my head to look at the man and woman. Zephyros, did you hear that? Quote opening parenthesis. I did. The two, who had been on their way elsewhere, suddenly turned around in our direction, wary and on guard. Thanks to us crouching down between the burning trees, we fortunately weren't spotted. Bah dump. However, moments like these were always the most nerve-wracking when playing hide and seek. Okay, but why am I even scared? Wouldn't it be better if I just walked out to talk to them? It'd save time too. We need to go check. Maybe there's a survivor. It must have been a demon who made that sound. Let's go already. But the day will soon come to an end. Let's go. Quote opening parenthesis. Okay. They concluded the sound must have come from a demon, and turned around to head off. Looks like we won't need to wander around this time, I mused. What, if we just follow them, we'll arrive at that cabin where we got the orb of fire. Raven shot me a sidelong look and remained silent. Oh, did I sound too much like a villain just then? The two-story stone cabin was situated in the middle of the forest. I had visited it both in the game and in reality, and unlike Stone Monument, I could immediately tell the difference between the two versions the moment I saw it. A whirring dome was shielding the building, producing a similar effect to the one produced by the orb of fire. Inside, the walls of the house were clean without a single blemish, and the wooden entrance also showed no signs of having been burned down, looking very well kept. And on top of all that, they're living a pretty good life. A single tree was growing in their small yard. It seemed to have been planted recently, as the tree was very small. Raven, do you remember the contents of the diary we read inside that house back then? Give me a second. I think I wrote it down back then. Somewhere in my subspace. Oh, right, here. Day 192. The rescue team did not come today, either. Now, there are only 3 of us left in the expedition. Tarvian suggested building a house, and I agreed. Demon meat tasted disgusting, as usual. No. Day 271. A decent-looking house was comp. No. What's the point of living when the world has ended, you ask? Even if everything burns down, there is still hope. As proof, we are. Still, I didn't care for the whining, so to just summarize the important parts. Day 467. Tarvian is pregnant. Whose child could it be? Day 672. No, 673. I don't know, but something big happened. The orb of fire began to lose its power. Already, the outer walls are getting scorched by fire. Only the wizard, Tarvian, can fix it. But even if she sacrifices her life to prolong the duration, what meaning is there? Day 711. At long last, Zephyros and I agreed on something. Today, we die. If the world has not ended by the witches, and if someone, someday, finds this place, I hope you use the object in the basement to save the world. Although I said they were important parts, these diary entries didn't have anything that useful in them, so I decided to just use them as a reference. Erwin, can you overhear the conversation they're having inside? I can hear them, but I can't understand what they're saying. Oh, right, they spoke in the ancient language. Then what should we do now? We did follow them all the way here, but I had no idea what I needed to do from this point on. Should I just continue observing them? It was the easiest choice available to us, but I was worried about our situation. After the blank period passed, we'd get swept up in the dimensional collapse once more. We'd already spent quite a bit of time coming all the way here, and the other members needed to rest for what time we had left. I'll be right back, I announced. What? I'll go and check by myself, so keep an eye out from here. Don't do anything unless I call for you first. A few members looked at me as if to ask if I really needed to go over there, but it didn't take long for me to convince them. From the situation, it's clear that they're an achievement of Gabrielius. If we get lucky, we might be able to obtain something that'll help us get through this predicament. Quote, still, if I sense that you're in danger, I will act. Got it. I'll trust you. With that sorted, I steadied my breathing and headed toward the house. The barrier word, it truly did seem to have the same functionality as the orb of fire. Even though it worked well in keeping the flame out, it offered up no resistance to me passing through. Although I went out of my way not to hide my presence, I couldn't hear anyone or anything being alerted from inside the house. Were their levels so low that they couldn't even detect me? Or was it simply because they weren't on guard against someone potentially invading their home? I didn't know, but soon enough, I was stepping up to the threshold of their door and gingerly lifting my hand. Knock, knock, knock. There came the sound of something crashing, and the conversation inside abruptly cut off. Clearly, they were startled. I didn't agitate them any further than that and just waited in front of the door. Soon enough, I felt a presence peek through the window next to me. So they were trying to observe me through that. Open, maybe. Expedition. Demon, rather, ambush. Fire. Talk, later, hide. Because of how quietly they were speaking, I couldn't pick out their words. Not looking directly at them might be best. I acted like I couldn't sense their presence either and grabbed the door knocker once more, knocking 3 times before speaking in the ancient language. Anyone home? I purposefully spoke to tell them that I was a conversable entity. This seemed to help a lot as I heard a response from beyond the door. Quote opening parenthesis ... Who are you? Well, how should I respond to get the best reaction? If I said I came here to take the orb of fire, it would probably lead to a battle. Did you perhaps see the signal? To save us. Signal, I echoed. The mana wave emitter. Did you not see one on your way here? There were a few set up around the area. Oh, was he talking about that monolith? So that was what it was, something like a radio tower. Who are you? Are you the rescue party? Perhaps suspicious of my answer, the voice that spoke next was audibly more guarded. Inwardly, I clicked my tongue, debating how to introduce myself. I'm not from the rescue party, I replied. Eventually, since it was obvious I would be found out if I lied, I decided to answer the question truthfully. Immediately, I picked up on the resulting disappointed sigh. They had apparently still held on to hope despite their raised suspicions. I didn't give the man any time to think and asked in return, by the way, are you from the expedition party? Why, you know of us? Somewhat. I pulled from my memory of what I'd read in the diary, matching the details of their story as closely as possible. As a result, they seemed to come to the conclusion that I wasn't their enemy. By the way, could you open the door so we can chat? I have no intention of hurting you. When they didn't respond, I added, you should know that I have no problem breaking the door down since I came all the way here without issue. Even while saying that, I tried as carefully as I could not to make it sound like a threat, and my good intentions seemed to have reached them, as the door slowly creaked open a moment later. Please come in. A man opened the door and guided me. Inside the man named Zephyros, whom I had seen before. Given how I couldn't see anyone else, he must have told the other two to hide. Slowly, Zephyros began, if you're not from the rescue party, just who are you? And how did you come to find this place when there are demons all over the place? Could it be that it hasn't ended yet? Questions peppered me as soon as I entered. This was probably the reason that he led an utter stranger like me into his home. He was more desperate for a conversation than I was. Talking with another person was a potential lifeline that had found him in this world of despair. Still, though, how should I answer him? After thinking for a second, I decided to dodge his question. I had already personally experienced quite a lot of the story regarding the Empire, and I'd heard the important parts from Arda not long ago as well. I could deceive him if we kept the conversation short. Answer me, please. Has the world not ended yet? Quote opening parenthesis ... No, it hasn't ended yet. Oh, by the gods. Have you perhaps heard of Raftania? I have. My best friend was from that territory. But why do you ask? Damn, as I thought. This was the exact era and time I'd suspected it was. Alright, looks like he's taken the bait. I went for a bold move in my story. Currently, all the survivors from across the world are gathering there to form a new kingdom. How? What about the curse? What are they doing about the curse? The witches. Curse cannot cross over into Raftania. That land is the final citadel. Is that true? Then please take us there. Please. 8:20 p.m. Theta. The witch's curse cannot cross over into Raftania. That land is the final citadel. Is that true? Then please take us there. Please. In his excitement, he mistakenly revealed the others by saying, "We," but I didn't pay it too much mind and continued, well. As I put my hand on my chin and looked down at him, he gulped in nervousness. I cannot take someone I do not know. There. You could do things that harm the territory instead. Now, the roles had shifted. And no, we're from the expedition. There's no way we'd. Then tell me everything that happened to you until now. Alright, let's hear that story of yours. Chapter 821. Lifeline 5. Where should I begin? When the man began his story with that, I immediately cut him off and told him the answer plainly, from the very beginning. No reason to worry about a little bit of summarizing here or there, just tell me everything about your life. It wasn't a typical ask, of course, but under these special circumstances where I was practically interviewing him, it was plausible enough. The Imperial Western Front, that is where I was born and raised. Zephyros was part of the generation born at the end of the Continental Age when the war with the Witch was at its peak. 2. Put it another way, he was born when the world didn't have long until its end. My mother joined the war as a nurse officer, and my father was an ordinary soldier. Battles were waged every day, and every time one of those battles occurred, he lost someone close to him. His parents weren't exempt from that brutal list. When I became an orphan at 11, I immediately volunteered for the army. I wasn't motivated by anything like anger against the monsters or a sense of patriotism. It was just the only thing I could do, the only thing I knew how to do. Fortunately, he was talented in the art of warfare. From a foot soldier to a unit leader, from a unit leader to a centurion. With every subsequent battle, he gained more of a reputation for his achievements and quickly rose up the ranks. Well, it's not so much that I accomplished anything great, but really that the people above me continued to die out one by one. I just happened to be able to fill that empty station. Although that was how he saw it, I took his words to mean he was being humble. Honestly, even if it was odd to say, the fact that he survived meant that he was strong. As you know, the situation out there isn't good. The Western Front, where I grew up, was pushed until we just couldn't possibly maintain that battle line any longer. In the end, we were absorbed into the Central Forces. Even in this new environment, however, he did his absolute best to survive, and he continued to grow stronger. Thankfully, there were many paths I could take. Since the world was coming to an end, we didn't have any additional ladders we needed to climb. The martial arts of the ancient and historical dukedom, magic, even the crafting techniques that were passed down to specific units. All of them were things any common soldier could study. Over time, Zephyros started to make a name for himself, and just as he began to receive some recognition from his higher-ups, I heard a rumor that an expedition force was to be created. Naturally, I volunteered. You're asking if it was because of the loathing I felt for the monsters. Well, I won't deny it played some part in it. If I could, I would immediately go and rip apart that witch and create a world where monsters like this didn't exist. But, the true reason that Zephyros joined the expedition force was because of one single sentence. I heard that if this expedition succeeded, this war would end. That was enough for me. I was honestly getting pretty sick of this life of death and death alone. And I didn't have a choice either. The world was already heading for its doom. I needed to do whatever I could. And so, Zephyros joined the expedition force and headed out in hopes of saving the world. The first destination of the expedition force was that cave where everything began. There, we defeated the First Lord of the Witch's army. And by the First Lord, you mean Dreadfair. That murderous monster. That thing born of an unexplainable mutation from consuming that transformative drug. The one that even the witch wasn't able to save. A transformative drug. One that even the witch wasn't able to save. While I didn't know enough to understand everything he said, I certainly recognized one thing. Dreadfair. The lord of the first floor, given the title of Terror. I had a few things I wanted to ask Zephyros, but I held back and continued to listen to his story. But why do you ask about that? It's as if this is the first time you're hearing about the First Lord. Because if I didn't, he would begin to doubt my identity if I asked him something I should obviously know. There was a chance that his entire conversation could crumble if I made a mistake. It's nothing. Continue talking, I urged, waiting him out as he hesitated. Well, sure. Zephyros talked for a while after that. After defeating the First Lord, our next goal was to defeat the Second Lord. For that, we split our expedition force into 4 groups and each headed to different areas. The Rock Desert, the Goblin Forest, the Den of Beasts, the Land of the Dead. After heading to those 4 locations, the expedition force fought a fierce battle and was finally able to defeat the Lord of Regret. In the end, after that, we arrived at the witch's hut. Then, as planned, we succeeded in fooling the Third Lord and summoning him too. By that point, I didn't even need to ask him leading questions. Although I had no idea how the two were connected, the route of the expedition force lined up with the route up the floors of the labyrinth. The battle itself wasn't difficult. As planned, we defeated the Third Lord, and we left to go defeat the Fourth. The tower in the sky, they call it. That's what those blasted pilgrims, who treat the earth and the sky the same, called it. To praise the witch, they said, even though the building led into the ground. It's not widely known, but that tower was constructed by the Empire. They dug deep into the ground to seal the evil god there and put a gatekeeper to watch over the seal. Well, in the end, the territory was taken over by the witch and her pilgrims, who renamed it instead. In any case, the Fourth Lord was a very difficult enemy. Zephyros shivered, as if just thinking about the Fourth Lord was enough to make him feel fear. Even so, the story continued with the expedition force defeating the Lord of the Heavenly Sky. We then arrived at our final destination, the Great Demon Realm. Only at this point did I learn the expedition's true goal. We went there to kill the Fifth Lord, Ciliot, for the crime of betraying the Empire and serving the witch, and then to seal the evil god once more, and after that, to kill the witch. However, that goal couldn't be accomplished. After entering the Great Demon Realm, he and his group members were separated from the expedition force during combat, and after a few more died off, he had no choice but to sit around here wait for a rescue party. That is my story. Even I don't think it's that interesting. I have a few questions, I began once he had finished. Go for it. It seems my life is currently in your hands. Why do you believe that the world ended? From what I could tell, all that happened to you was your team getting separated from the others. That expedition force was the final hope of humanity, and if that expedition succeeded, this sea of fire that surrounds this building would have disappeared as well. The expedition failed. The world ending just because the expedition failed. It was proof of how dire the situation had truly been and how the Empire had brainwashed the expedition force before sending them out for their mission. Then, Zephyros hesitantly asked for confirmation. Am I wrong? I let a bitter laugh escape me. Oh, the expedition probably had failed in the end. However, they wouldn't have failed in the Great Demon Realm. First floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor, fifth floor. The route the expedition force had taken was in line with the floors of the labyrinth. No, I suspected that the expedition had continued on for a while. Past the Great Demon Realm, they would have set out into the open ocean, then gone past the Dark Continent and defeated the one called Lord in Ice Rock. They would have then made their way through the Land of Dawn and the Tomb of Stars and even reached the Abyss. So what in the world happened? In the end, I was left disappointed, knowing I would not get to hear those stories from Zephyros, the man left behind on the fifth floor. Tell me, did the expedition fail? You will naturally learn of it when you leave, I answered shortly. All right, then, I'll ask the second question. Go on. What are these lords? It was something that had caught my attention while listening to his story. Just what were these beings called lords? I awaited his answer in anticipation. How does this question help prove that I won't be of harm to Raftania? Well, that was true. But I widened my shoulders and glared down at him to intimidate him. Are you talking back? Number? Zephyros squeaked, hunching into himself a little more. It's not that I don't want to answer, but I have no idea why you're asking me this question. I'm not expecting you to understand. You just need to answer my question. Is this a test? A test? Huh, not a bad assumption. When I just stood my ground and stared down at him, he couldn't bear the pressure and ended up speaking first. I still don't know what this is about, but I'll tell you everything I know. The lords, they're pilgrims, born through the authority of the witch, and they possess power that exceeds the laws of the world. More than exceeds the natural laws, they can ignore them. However, not everyone agrees on how they were created. Even just the First Lord is a point of contention. Having been a prisoner of war, the Imperial Army forced him to consume a drug that would destroy his mind and body, then be reborn into a new living weapon. But for some reason, it went on a rampage and became the first among the lords instead. They never leave their own territories, and since they're practically the kings of those areas, they were named as the lords of the witch's army. The second, the fourth, and the fifth lords obeyed the witch with unquestioning loyalty, while the first and the third lords were just murderous monsters moving on instinct, not making a distinction between friend and foe. Some even suggested that birth of the lords was instigated by the witch, and that they were created because the witch wasn't able to fully control the powers she possessed. That is all I know. I see. The explanation he gave me was all over the place, but it didn't seem like he had a concrete understanding of the lords either. Third question. Why did the expedition force go after the lords and the evil god? Isn't that obvious? The lords were made to protect the witch, and the evil god is the witch's ally. But the way you asked that, is there perhaps something that I don't know? I clicked my tongue. This guy kept parrying my questions with his own. I'll just ignore him. Final question. Are you alone here? Zephyros shut his mouth tight as a wary expression fell over his face. He's doubting me after all this time. Well, I could understand why. Even though he decided to put his trust in me, he couldn't make that decision for the others. He was hesitating out of concern for his allies, not wanting to make a reckless decision and bring them harm. Finally, after a long pause, Zephyros began to speak. He's not alone, another man said, cutting Zephyros off as he appeared from above the stairs. The man looked to be more than 6 feet tall and in his mid-30s, sporting a messy beard and stark facial features that made him look even stronger. I didn't recognize him, but I did feel a sense of connection with him. Zephyros is in front of me, Tarvian is a woman, and since he's not a baby, there was only one person left after the process of elimination. Do excuse me, but I heard everything you said during the conversation from above. He was the author of the diary. Greetings. I am Ormi Noark. My brain short-circuited at those two familiar names combined into one, but then rebooted itself nearly instantly. There was only one person left after the process of elimination. Do excuse me, but I heard everything you said during the conversation from above. He was the author of the diary. Greetings. I am Ormi Noark. My brain short-circuited at those two familiar names combined into one, but then rebooted itself nearly instantly. The Ormi Revolutionary Corps in Noark. For your reference, I am the one from Raftinia that he was talking about. And Raftinia on top of all that. This is getting very interesting. There was no such thing as a coincidence. Chapter 822, Lifeline 6. Ormi Noark was a part of the expedition force and had ended up trapped in the burning Great Demon Realm after being separated from the main force with his two allies. And I knew how he would die. Day 711. At long last, Zephyros and I agreed on something. Today, we die. In the end, this entire group would greet death in despair. Do you know who I am? The moment I realized the author of that diary was named Ormi Noark, my thoughts took a different turn. What if he didn't die on that day? What if he escaped this place, reached the city of Raftinia to create the Ormi Revolutionary Corps sometime later, and then ultimately succeeded in constructing the underground city of Noark? Is that too much of a leap in logic? Maybe, but I couldn't just ignore the theory either. In the end, imagination was just a combination of accrued data. My imagination had created this plausible theory the moment I heard the name Ormi Noark and the keyword Raftinia. There are some inconsistencies, though. The Ormi Revolutionary Corps in the city of Noark didn't have a lot of history with them. At most, They'd been around for a few hundred years before our present time. There was an immense gap in time between this ancient era and the current world. I don't, I answered firmly. I thought I'd heard about you once before, but I don't remember. In the end, I decided to dig for more information. It was clear there was some connection between this man, Noark, and the Ormi Revolutionary Corps. It makes sense if you came from Raftania. Our family is one of the oldest vassal families of Raftania, so you may have interacted with one of the people of my family. I could see the intense desire burning in Ormi Noark's eyes when he said it, too, an unyielding will of sorts, to return alive no matter what. Of course, that didn't snuff out all of his lingering doubts. But, is it true that Raftania survived? That it became the sole citadel that stopped the witch's curse? He spoke as if he still couldn't believe my words, but then quickly continued, take us there, quickly. I wish to confirm it with my own eyes. I have not finished my verification test. Is there a need for that? If that man is still the Lord, I'm certain he'll welcome me with open arms when I... That is your opinion, I sternly cut him off. The man became flustered, not knowing how to respond. Seeing his reaction, I calmly asked him another question. What is the name of the Lord of Raftania? To be honest, I'd asked because I wasn't sure myself. However, he seemed to think it was a confirmation question, so he gave me the answer I wanted. Revision Kamalbi Raftania. Oh, so the immortal was still the ruler. As I checked another theory off my mental list as confirmed, he carried on to say, any question will do. I will answer them all, so please, let us. No, we're fine. There is a mother with her young child. Just those two. Please take them to Raf. Suddenly, he cut himself off before he could speak the full name. An uncanny sense of unease fell over me as the silence settled between us. No, it was more than just unease. Something was off. His pleading voice and sorrowful expression had been wiped away completely, and now, he just stared at me. I shot a glance at Zephyros, only to find the same was true for him as well. As if time had stopped, the two men in front of me went deadly quiet and just looked at me with a blank expression. Like two broken robots. Dump. In unexpected situations, my instinct always leapt before my reason. Rather than analyzing the situation I was in, my hand jumped to my shield, ready to lift it at any moment. And then, the moment I entered my combat-ready stance, he spoke. Stop. The words were not in the ancient language we had been communicating in this entire time but in the Raftanian language. I understand that you didn't intend on coming here, but do not make fools out of these people any more than you already have. Dump. As the low beat of my heart thumped in my ears, I slowly parted my lips. Although I had no idea what had just happened. Who are you? His character had just changed. The man didn't immediately answer my question. Instead, he merely stared at me for a good long while as he collected his thoughts. Eventually, he revealed, if you go into the basement, you will find the orb of fire. With that, it will empower the orb of fire you already possess by another step. Oh, there was an effect like that. While I was still marveling a little at that fun fact, the man continued coldly, so after you obtain that, leave this place immediately. That is the sole reward you will be able to gain from your visit to this place. To be honest, the entire situation was a surprise to me. I didn't know what was actually going on, but it wasn't as if I had any way of figuring out who this guy in front of me was. However, I knew one thing. For sure, who the hell is he to boss me around? This guy didn't know how to deal with barbarians at all. With how much of an asshole he was being, I wouldn't do what he asked me, even if I'd planned on doing it in the first place. Well, you're wrong, I rebutted. Rewards aren't just physical things. Now piss off and stop getting in my way. I need to finish my conversation with this man named Ormi Noark. Sure, I was beyond curious who this entity was, but I tried my best not to make it obvious, and it was for one very simple reason. The person who desired less was usually the one who would take control of the conversation. He was practically spilling all his beans for me, and now this weird guy appeared in his stead. I complained, huffing to make my point. I watched his brow twitch into a frown for a split second. From my experience, that was a sign that he was getting pissed with me. Despite being so offended, though, he wasn't doing anything, so talking is all he can do. Because there was still some doubt in my mind, I decided to experiment a little bit. If you want me to leave, why didn't you say this instead? In exchange for taking the orb of fire, please leave this place without causing a scene. Something like that. When he didn't respond, I continued, can you not do that? Wow, I don't know how you were raised, but you have no manners. The entity went to speak, but I quickly interrupted him. Whatever. Just bring that guy back. I have nothing to say to you. He remained silent for a while before asking, if I say that, will you leave? Oh, was he actually going to do it? With no way of knowing for certain, I just shrugged. I'll see. One genuine word could be the thing that changes everything. Quote. In exchange for taking the orb of fire, please leave this place. Wow, he actually did it. I tensed my facial muscles to stop the edges of my lips from curling up. That's better. Then, but isn't it common sense for you to introduce yourself when you're requesting something, having been caught in the trap of to shake in anger? However, it seemed that barbarian common sense, the entity began, was all he could do, as soon enough, he was revealing his identity to me. I am Ormi Noark. Oh, so you're the original, then. If you know that much, then this conversation will be quick. What you were just talking to was an entity that is a reenactment of my past self. I'd just tossed the word, original, out there, without much thought, so the immediate response I got back was shocking enough to nearly make me shout. Still, there was something that pulled me straight back to reality. Since I've introduced myself, can you now? Hey, he was taking every opportunity he got. Together, he shot me a confused look. Since you know now, make your request and your introduction together. Quote. I am the original Ormi Noark. Please do not taint this memory any further and leave with the orb of fire. Please. The request was extremely polite compared to before. Once again, I gave it a serious moment of thought before handing him an answer. I don't want to. What? I'm not leaving. That's not what you promised. What promise? I said, I'll see. I am genuinely begging you. And I took a genuine moment to consider it, and I'm not leaving. You were planning on making a fool out of me from the beginning. Quote, make a fool out of you. What are you talking about? You made a sincere request, and I took a sincere amount of time to think before refusing your request. Is there a problem with your head? You should know your place. Resorting to insults now. Since this shameless individual had no intention of learning his manners despite my teachings and had even misinterpreted my genuine response, I no longer saw a reason to continue going easy on him. Even as he shouted, I didn't retreat but instead took a big step forward, using my barbarian figure to my advantage to look down at him. What are you going to do about it? Size and battle strength didn't have much correlation at our levels. From the looks of things, you can't do much about me being here, can you? But our conversation up to this point had proven to me that he posed me no threat. Because you would have kicked me out already. Am I wrong? As I expected, he fell quiet. However, it didn't seem he was a complete fool, as he skipped past all the unnecessary dialogue and went straight to the point. What do you want? Information? Or physical rewards equivalent to that? That orb is all the physical reward you can take from here. That would have been the case originally. But we aren't in a normal situation now, are we? Things had progressed to the point that an entity claiming to be the original version of himself had appeared. It was clear that he'd cough up something if I continued to shake him down. Apparently, though, he had seen through my clear as day intentions. He bit his lip in anger. Shameless bastard. To my ears, that's a compliment. There are no physical rewards I can give you. I don't even have that authority in me to begin with. Then you'll need to give me information. I've met a few people like you who call themselves the original. Just what are you? Are you using your right to remain silent? He smirked. And if I am, what will you about it? Whoa, so that was the approach he was going to take. Well, I don't know yet, I admitted. But, if you keep staying quiet, I'll go down and take the orb of fire from your basement. He snorted at that. That attitude of his didn't last long, however. After that, I'll destroy everything. I'll destroy the house, destroy Zephyros. Destroy your body, and even destroy that mother. Even the mother, he mumbled in apparent shock. So this guy didn't know what true equality was. Didn't you ask what I'd do? I've only told you the answer you wanted to hear. And if I happen to make good on my word, what can you do then? I taunted. I will recreate everything. The orb of fire, this house, their lives. I can just recreate them again. This whole thing is but a play created by that child to begin with. Now I kept quiet, waiting for him to finish. Soon enough, he revealed, however, even if I am able to restore everything, I cannot bear to see you beat Tarvian to death. Oh, fine. You win, Barbarian. Ask me something else. I will answer everything I can, then. But I cannot tell you about my origins. That is something that I cannot share even if I wanted to, so don't get it twisted. Oh, even so, my answers are sure to be better than the ones my past self was giving you. I know much more now than he did back then. I guess that's true. Still, I couldn't help but feel dissatisfied with my gains somehow. Now, choose. I have presented you with all the possible options. Those words were his final declaration. After taking a moment to think, I gave a nod. Sure, it was time to have an intelligent discussion. Chapter 823, Lifeline 7. The intelligent conversation that followed was peaceful and effective. I asked, and he answered. No tricks or tomfoolery to be had. Then I'll ask this first. In the past, I happened to come across your diary and read it. On the final page of that diary, it said, "Today, we die." What happened after that? He answered my first question willingly, revealing to me a dark story that he wove in a calm and matter-of-fact tone. We all decided to die together, and so we ate the drug that Travian created for us. However, for some reason, I didn't die. It may have been because of a resistance that I had built up after consuming all sorts of transformative drugs while I was a soldier. Their plans to die together on the same day failed when Ormi Noark survived. There weren't any more drugs left, so I left this home where my allies slept and wandered out. I couldn't find the demons that I was looking for, but it didn't matter. The flames burned my skin, and the scalding air ruined my lungs. With this, I thought I'd be able to return to their sides soon enough. However, if this second plan had succeeded, he wouldn't be here telling me this story. Even so, I survived. How is that possible? I wondered. While I was slowly being burned alive, a demon appeared. A welcome creature that would end my suffering. However, when I approached it with a smile, an arrow suddenly flew in and shot it in the back of its head. The man bit down on his lip in pain before continuing. It was the rescue party. The people whom the four of us had been so desperately waiting for. Even as I lost consciousness due to the exhaustion of it all, I could hear that voice. That gentle voice, telling me not to worry, that I would survive. With that, the man closed his eyes in despair. And when he woke up later, a few days had passed, and I had been saved by the rescue party and was being transported out of this damn great demon realm. He told the party to return to where he had been, to retrieve the remains of his allies at least, but the rescue party refused and said they didn't have the luxury for something like that. A wave of regret swept over me. Just one day. If we had made our decision just one day later, everyone would have been rescued. We would have all survived. Having been rescued after years of waiting, the man contemplated what was left for him in this life. Should I live, or should I die? However, that decision had already been made for him as well. The living had their own responsibilities to fulfill, after all. In the end, he wasn't able to throw himself down the cliff of despair, and so his story continued. However, before I heard the rest of it, I asked one thing. This rescue party you're talking about, who were they? Raftania. What? Revision Kamalbi Raftania. The Immortal, Revision 3. More specifically, it was him and the allies he had been making history with. Fate had inexplicably twisted for the man. Who could welcome only death? In truth, the man had met the Immortal before this encounter. The Immortal was of the direct bloodline of the Territory Lord's family, after all, and this man was a son of one of the vassal houses. However, when the war intensified, a conscription order was given to even the territories in the countryside, and I had to leave the territory before I was even of, quote, Age. Because of that, there was a long gap of 20 years before this reunion. Curious, I asked, what was he like? Even though it had been a while since I had seen him, he was the same as before. He hadn't lost his cheerful persona and was still witty with his words. He had the energy of a prankster, but I could always sense the respect and care he had for those around him. So he was normal. Normal. Well, perhaps, I suppose you could see it that way. That is, if the world hadn't been in that situation. Then, the man said, his laughter and bright energy didn't suit this hopeless world. Having met him again, how do I put this? He had become great. Great enough that even an ordinary person like me could notice in an instant. I hadn't expected a guy with the name of Noark to praise the immortal. The strangeness of it left me reeling for a bit after, but I decided to focus for now. I would get my chance to sort through the feeling hearing the rest of his story. In this world without hope, he had been roaming around the continent with his allies to find that hope again. That was how he was able to find me in the Great Demon realm. What happened after that? He took me to Raftinia first so that they could restock their equipment. That must have been nice, being able to return home after so long. Well, I don't know if I'd call that place my home. Noticing my obvious confusion, he explained, it wasn't the Raftinia I knew. Instead, it was a shelter created deep in the underground to survive the end. The survivors there were, struggling to just pass the day. The moment he said it, I got the feeling this shelter he was talking about was, in fact, Noark. I did hear that that city had been created by Raftinia once upon a time, hence the dimensional square. There, only after their skills developed did they leave the underground, build the city walls, and create the grand kingdom of Raftinia as it was now. In any case, I returned to that Raftinia, and he parted with his group once more, leaving me the heavy burden of managing the shelter. I still have no idea what he saw in me to entrust such an important task to me. Maybe it was the historic vassal name of Noark that I possessed, or maybe he wanted to give me a purpose when I had been left to wander away my days, just waiting for death. The man couldn't have known this, but while he had been left behind and did his best to manage the shelter, Revision had gone off for his grand adventure. Every time he returned, survivors from with every corner of the world returned him and gathered together. The shelter developed, and the number of people who left on his journeys with him increased as well. And so, time passed. He finally finished his great journey and discovered the hope for this world. What was it? I cannot answer any question related to my origin. However, you should already know what it is. I let out a quiet mumble. The labyrinth. The man didn't respond, but that was answer enough. If I combine this with the information Arda gave me, does that mean the immortal obtained the power of origin at the end of his journey? This secret ancient history was filled to the brim with interesting and exciting plot points. However, unfortunately for me, all the stories that followed were locked away beyond my reach. Did you know? Sometimes, hope only births even deeper despair. The hope that he discovered was no different from looking away from the despair in front of our eyes and toward a different source of despair. How about you just tell me directly what this is, instead of going in circles with riddles? I grunted. I cannot. I sighed. Was this another one of those questions related to the origin or something? Having learned all truths, he devised a plan to save the world. The uninformed were satisfied with this, but those who knew the truth could only be horrified at his plans. And I suppose you can't tell me what this plan was. He was silent. Yeah, figures. It's fine, so just tell me everything else you can tell me. Those who agreed to his plans were sick and tired of the underground. They left with him and created a kingdom above ground. Those who couldn't agree to his plan, including me, remained in the underground city. This felt like an itch I couldn't scratch. Although I now knew why the underground refuge city of Raftinia was called Noark, the questions that I actually wanted answered weren't being answered. What about the Ormi Revolutionary Corps? I pressed, getting impatient. Can you not tell me anything about that either? I have told you everything I can. What about Gabrielius? What kind of bastard is that guy? He was the greatest companion on the journey Revision took, and the man who executed that terrible plan. Well, in the end, he also seemed to have changed his mind and turned away. What do you mean by turned away? Silence. Man, I'd wanted to get a decent answer for that one at least. Still, combined with everything I'd heard from Arda, I got the sense that I was taking gradual steps toward the truth about this world. All right, then I've told you everything I could. I hope that you can leave now. As he signaled that this conversation was over, I gave a stern shake of my head. No, no matter how much you push me, I have nothing else I can tell. That's not it. I'll need to take what is mine before I go. Wasn't he the one who told me I could upgrade my orb of fire? Pretty sure the basement is that way, correct? I was going to get what I could and then leave. You have obtained the pristine orb of fire. The orb of fire in your possession has evolved into a perfect orb of fire. When I went down to the basement and grabbed the other orb of fire, it combined with the one I originally had and changed its appearance. Although its form didn't change completely, the flame that was burning within the orb seemed to grow much more powerful. I can test out its effects later. Still, this was incredibly interesting to me. An event like this had never appeared, not even when I obtained 2 orbs of fire. Did it have to be the orb of fire from this place in particular? Just then, a new question popped into my mind. Noark, where are we? 2. Just what was this place? I could tell it wasn't simply the hidden world accessible through Mila Rodin's mirror. Shelter. Oh, the field name was different from the jump. How do you enter this place? What are the conditions? He took a pause, then said, I cannot tell. You. As the name suggests, this place is my shelter. One that I cannot allow anyone else entry into. But then how did we end up here? You can only access it if the entire labyrinth is unstable. Must mean the method of entry is pretty difficult. Was it something like gathering 7 different orbs of fire like that one show? Well, not that it mattered now that I'd finished. 2. Now leave. I have given you everything I have to give. Hey, don't rush me. I'll be forced to leave. At some point, whether or not I want to stay. Though Noark didn't respond, I exited the basement back into the living room and took a moment to look around. Zephyros was still standing tall near the door like a broken robot. If I went upstairs, the woman named Tarvian and the child would probably be in a similar state. This whole thing is but a play created by that child to begin with. Suddenly, I recalled that phrase I heard from Noark. Why did that word, play, leave such an impression on me? A play just for one person. I think I get why this place is called shelter. Noark didn't respond to my mumblings, and for some reason, I couldn't help but say it. When I saw his muted reaction, are you satisfied? No answer came this time either. However, his expression was an answer in and of itself. It was one of bitterness, as if to ask back how I could even think he could be satisfied. My instinctive barbarian repulsion to anyone who looked like that activated, and I ended up patting him strongly on his back. Smack, smack. The slaps made quite a loud sound each time, too. What are you? He freaked out like a neutral monster who just got damaged, and I rushed to speak before the situation could escalate. Just hold on for a little longer. What? I don't like how everything is now either. Honestly, I had nothing else I could say to him. I knew too little to make any promises to him. Were you perhaps trying to console me? He asked, belatedly realizing my intentions. I just shrugged at that, then left the house. Whoosh. Because the protection of the orb of fire was no longer present within, the building began to burn down as I moved farther away. I took a moment to stop and watch, then clicked my tongue. When we eventually left, that building would rebuild itself, and that guy would secretly watch the events of his past play out like some pervert. My feelings were clear now. I don't like this at all. And when I didn't like something, I needed to get rid of it. That was the way of the barbarian. After leaving Noark's shelter, I regrouped with my allies, who had been carefully observing the area. We then began to reorganize ourselves before the dimensional collapse resumed. Those who needed to rest rested plentifully, and those who had some time freely talked with each other about what would soon happen, prepared for any and all scenarios to come. As for me, I went with Raven to check on the effectiveness of the newly upgraded Orb of Fire. There's no way the numbers are wrong, right? Why are you the one asking that? The results were surprising to say the least. All fire damage within 15 yards is decreased by 90%. The phrase, continuous damage, had disappeared. The effect now applied to all fire damage. A 15-yard radius where all fire damage within its aura would be decreased by 90%. This is nuts. The results were surprising to say the least. All fire damage within 15 yards is decreased by 90%. The phrase, continuous damage, had disappeared. The effect now applied to all fire damage. A 15-yard radius where all fire damage within its aura would be decreased by 90%. This is nuts. Fire was nothing now.